Hello and good evening, beautiful people. I am your host, Israel Rivera, presenting Prime Sports World, another edition of College Football Showdown here this week and forever on the Huddle Sports Network. You can also please like and share and subscribe to the podcast here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and everywhere else that you can find the podcast, which is all on streaming platforms as well. Um, just put those back up there, ladies and gentlemen. Um, with a lot of, back episodes that I gotta re-upload there, about 200 of them, but you can catch the latest ones, especially an hour after the show if you're on Apple Podcasts, Samsung Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon as well. So you guys can catch us. Prime Sports World keeps you guys locked in here 360 degrees around the axis, ladies and gentlemen. And hey, when I look at those stats, man, hey, shout out to my people in Finland. Shout out to my people in Germany. Shout out to my people in Australia, New Zealand, for all listening to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. We are international, baby. We're international, baby. And this is one of my favorite podcasts. I'm surprisingly, look, I'm solo dolo tonight. Christian may join. Matt James will not be joining. But we have a lot to talk about here on the College Football Showdown Breakdown. We weren't here last week, so we didn't talk about the first edition of the College Football Playoff Bracket coming out. We had the second edition last week come in, so we'll get to talk a little bit about those matchups. But this is a interesting time, new times in college football, especially with NIL deals. You got guys, seniors getting $10.5 million, to sign with teams. Shout out to the number one prospect quarterback that ditched Michigan for LSU. But anyways, moving on to the first topic of the night. And these are our week 11 headlines. I got Ole Miss dominating Georgia last week. And I was very surprised at this game. I thought that this would be a little bit of a closer game. Ole Miss pretty much stuck it to them all game long. They played great defense. Jackson Dart was phenomenal. He made all the right plays. And it just seems like that Georgia offense just was not ready to play football against Ole Miss, especially at home, hostile environment. And Ole Miss was ready to play. Especially, Ole Miss, kind of being, two losses, they backs against the wall. They know they had to win that game. If they lose that game against Georgia, they're eliminated from college football playoff contention. They've won 3 in a row after dropping that 3-point loss to LSU. I mean, they've lost. Their closest losses. I mean, they lost to Kentucky by 3. They lost to LSU by 3 at LSU. And so, I mean, they've lost by a combined total of 6 points. I mean, Lane Kiffin has his team playing beautiful football this year. It's the best team, I think, that Lane Kiffin, obviously the best team that he's ever had. And Jackson Dart has really catapulted himself into the Heisman conversation. If he wasn't in there already, he's definitely in there now. But thoughts on the game, Carson Beck, just 20 of 31, 186 yards, another lackluster performance, 1 interception. He has really hurt his draft stock tremendously. And I think it would benefit him if he actually probably would stay in school another year and go to, go on the transfer portal or whatever the case is, but, to elevate his draft stock. But even if not, he'll still be one of the top 5, 6 guys taken. He'll probably get taken in the second round, late first or something like that. So, yeah, it might be good for him to go, but he's no longer a top 3, 4 quarterback, to be taken in his draft. I mean, 24 over, little under 2,500 yards, 17 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He just doesn't see the field as well as you would like to see him. He's got a great arm, rocket for an arm, but just doesn't see the field well. And then you look at Jackson Dart, and Jackson Dart has played tremendous football, over 3,400 yards, 22 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's also a dual threat guy. He's got let me pull up his rushing stats here. He's got over 300 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns. So he's a guy that can get a little wiggle and jiggle out of that pocket and get it going. But yeah, Ole Miss had a great game plan. Shout out to them dominating Georgia. And now you put Georgia in that same predicament where it's like they got a big game this week against Tennessee. We'll get to it. And that game is a do or die game for Georgia. You lose that game, you're not in the college football playoff. You're the first team out already. Boise State's in, but right now you're the first team out. Second team out, SMU. We'll get to those rankings in a second. But this is a big game against number 7 Tennessee, and they're gonna have to get it going. This weekend. If they want to stay alive, they have to get a win this week. Next game we got on the slate, number 4 Miami. Next headline, number 4 Miami dropped one. They just got completely outclassed against unranked Georgia Tech. As Georgia Tech, ran the football. Haynes King, 20 carries, 93 yards. They had a great game plan. Cam Ward had another excellent performance. So he was sacked a lot. He did throw some balls that probably could have been catchable by his wide receivers, but nonetheless, I mean, Miami just, they were just outclassed here. Georgia, they could not stop the Georgia Tech rushing offense. And that offense there was a lot of motion, a lot of fake jet sweeps, a lot of, option play coming from Haynes King. And they saw, the weakness in that Miami team. And that's that Miami defense. Obviously, we know that Miami defense hasn't been great. The offense has been stellar, but the defense just hasn't been up to snuff. I mean, they almost lost a close one to California. They almost lost a close one to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's a competitive team. They were in a barn burner against LSU. They blew out Florida State. They blew out Duke. But look at those games like, going into Cal, that game was a little too close for comfort, right? Virginia Tech, they should have probably lost that game, right? That the Hail Mary play. I mean, come on now. Let's call a spade a spade. They probably should have lost that game. Louisville, took them to the brink, 52-45 against Louisville. And then let's not put in the hands that Duke had them a little bit on the ropes there, a little bit in the first 3 quarters until Miami kind of took off in that game. But this Miami defense, giving up 38 points, giving up 45 points, giving up 31 points to Duke, giving up 34 points to Virginia Tech. I mean, this team is too talented defensively to allow giving up, letting Georgia Tech win time of possession and outfool them on the ground. Georgia Tech had a great game plan. They controlled time of possession. They ran the football. And they play great defense. And that is how you upset a top 5 team. You keep the team offense, one of the best offense in the nation, highest scoring offense in the nation. Cam Ward has the most touchdown passes. He's a Heisman Trophy candidate, one of the top 3 Heisman Trophy candidates. You keep him on the sideline. And it's tough for, any team to get a rhythm going. But nonetheless, big shout out to Georgia Tech. And Miami's still in the college football playoff right now. They're still projected to win the ACC. They're still a top 4 projected team in the bracket. But at the same time, I'm kind of keeping my one eye open because you know what? They drop another one, and it's gonna be might be a little sweat going down there in Miami right now. But nonetheless, you drop one, you kind of got to bounce back. And I think that Miami will bounce back. I think they have a bye week this week, so we'll see how they bounce back after their late bye week here in week 12. Next game, next headline, we have number 21 Colorado continuing their winning ways against Texas Tech as they go into Lubbock and they beat down the Texas Tech Raiders 41-27. This game was, it was Texas Tech had the lead going into the first half, going into the second half, and then Colorado just took over, scoring 31 points in the second half. Shedeur Sanders, another spectacular performance, 30 of 43, 291 yards, 3 touchdowns. Augustov was the leading rusher with 32 yards, and Travis Hunter continues his Heisman campaign with 9 receptions, 99 yards, 1 touchdown. He also defensively, I want to look at his defensive stats in this game as well. He was the leading receiver, and he also was playing lockdown defense as well on the other side of the ball. So Travis Hunter continues to be an amazing player this year. And Shedeur and Shiloh Sanders, Shadeur's older brother, had a pick 6 in this game as well that kind of catapulted them. So Colorado is one of the fascinating stories of the college football season, as they're sneaking up a little bit in that college football playoff reign to 17. We know BYU is leading the Big 12 right now, but Colorado right now is second in the Big 12. And they got a favorable schedule: Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. But it's really going to be interesting down to the wire. When Colorado, if Colorado, Utah, BYU, has to continue to win, because Colorado's keeping their foot on the gas, here so far. Look, let me tell you, man, there's still a Big 12 championship game to be played, right? There's still a Big 12 championship game to be played, and top 2 teams make it. Top 2 teams make it in the Big 12 championship game. And right now, you're looking at and this one's in Arlington. You're looking at BYU and Colorado. Basically right now, BYU and Colorado. If the season ended today, BYU and Colorado, and then you got Iowa State, you got Kansas State, who beat Colorado, but those would be the 2 teams that would be in the Big 12 championship game, if I'm not mistaken. Might be Kansas State, just because of the fact that they probably have the tiebreaker over Colorado. I don't know how all that works, but right now they're on the heels right now of being in that Big 12. I think it would be Colorado because of the ranking, but right now it's really nip and tuck right now in the Big 12, and I think Colorado has definitely a chance if they continue to win out, continue to play the amazing football that they're playing. They have a bye week as well this week as they play. Oh no, they play Utah this week. Sorry about that. They play Utah this week, but if they win out, it's going to be interesting. Utah's a tough defensive team, but they're on the down year. Kyle Whittingham on the down year. Much respect there. He's a great coach, but Colorado's a team that if Deion gets them in the college football playoff, it's going to be something. It's going to be something. And I wish Christian was here to talk with me about Colorado, because I know he'd have a lot to say about their winning ways and how that team has transcended this year, to the being back in the top. They're a legit, like the job that Deion Sanders has done at the University of Colorado is magnificent. Like, he has completely changed that program around 180-degree turn. He went to Jackson State. He won at Jackson State. Everybody was praised him for going to Jackson State, winning at Jackson State. But then once he went to Colorado, it was, he had a lot of heat from all the pundits and everything last year. And then now this season, they started off the season really not a lot of expectations for this team. But now, as you get into, the last 3 weeks of the season, they win this week against Utah. They're 8-2. They're already bowl eligible. This team believes they can win. They have a lot of talent on this team. This team is one of the best 2-loss teams in the nation, in my opinion. And I think if they were to play Kansas State again, they would beat the heck out of Kansas State. Okay. And lo and behold, we'll see how that Big 12 championship game runs, because I think that they can really put the beating on BYU in let's put this out. We know Deion's track record in championship games, right? When he was at Jackson State, he lost two times to the MEAC, you know. So, let's we gotta, and usually they call that game the Black National Championship for the HBCUs, right? He's got the SWAC versus the MEAC. He lost both times after being one of the higher ranked teams in FCS. So let's pump the brakes on maybe Deion possibly winning a tournament, winning a Big 12 conference championship game. They got to get there first. But I like their chances against BYU, even though BYU is one of the best teams in the nation. I think that Colorado has a lot of belief. They have a lot of athletes on that field. That their wide receiver room is up there. It's like probably top 10, with Travis Hunter, LaJohntay Wester, Will Shepherd, who's the other kid from Godly. I'm kicking myself right now. I think he went to the USF before here. I'm about to really be upset right now. I'm about to just look it up right now. I'm about to really be upset that I can't get it. But yeah, the Colorado is definitely on the doorstep of being in the college football playoff, and it's pretty remarkable that we're talking about this at this juncture in the season. Jimmy Horn. I'm sorry, Jimmy Horn. How could I forget about Jimmy Horn? He's almost been the forgotten guy actually this season because how good Travis Hunter's been, obviously offensively. LaJohntay Wester and Will Shepherd, those two guys have really stepped it up, and it's hard that Jimmy Horn, who was a standout last year, has kind of been relegated to maybe like the third or fourth option in games. But you know what? I will say this is that when Jimmy Horn is on the field, right? Teams have to be very weary of him taking the top off the defense. Teams have to be very weary of him taking the top off the defense, and you see a lot of guys playing him up top, which kind of sometimes leaves Travis Hunter open, which leaves LaJohntay Western open because he's such a deep threat to extend the field extend the field. That Jimmy Horn is a high flyer in that offense. So next headline and last headline, we got number 11 Alabama in virtually a elimination game for the CFP, so to speak. Sorry about that, y'all. Anyways, yeah, at number 11 Alabama, virtually an elimination game against LSU, eliminated number 15 LSU from CFP contention. This one wasn't even close last week, and I was very surprised that LSU wasn't able to even keep up, as Jalen Milroe put up 4 rushing touchdowns last week en route to 185 rushing yards on 12 carries. He looked every bit of remarkable and sensational. 12 of 18, 109 yards through the air. Jan Miller was a leading receiver on the day, 5 receptions, 50 yards. But, and then on the other side, Garrett Nussmeier continues to have some of those turnover issues, 27 to 42, 239 yards, 1 touchdown, but 2 interceptions, as he's thrown for already 11 picks, 21 touchdowns, 11 interceptions on the season, over 2,800 yards, which isn't too bad, but he does have that little turnover bugaboo. But Alabama just really laid it into them. This game wasn't even close. They played great defense. LSU really couldn't get nothing going on the ground either. I mean, Caden Durham, they were down so much that they had to almost, they had to pass the ball 42 times, but they were down so much that they were kind of pressing a little too much. And Alabama just stuck it right to them. They got back to the basics. They know that, Jalen Milroe, nobody can touch Jalen Milroe when he gets out the pocket. Those quarterback design runs where they were just gashing LSU's defense with. And Alabama just looked, a little bit more athletic on the offensive side, especially at the quarterback position, obviously, with Jalen Milroe. And he showed why he is a dynamic player in this league. And I even text TJ, whoever I know who TJ is. I text TJ and said, hey, will this guy be a running back? He said, man, you don't think he'll be a quarterback? Well, I'm like, no, he's so good at running the ball and seeing the field. Like, and he's what, 6'1", 6 foot, 225 pounds. Like, he can legit be like a star running back in the NFL. But nonetheless, I mean, he's obviously came out and said that he wants to play quarterback. But yeah, this kid, Jalen Milroe was absolutely sensational against LSU. And I'm glad that he was, because you know what? The last couple of weeks, everybody has been talking about Jalen Milroe's quarterback play, and it's kind of been lackluster since the Georgia game. And I'm glad that they got back to basics. They use his athleticism. Uses athleticism there. Got a little packing back there. Got a little unpacking back there. Anyways, uses athleticism to get out the pocket and make it happen. For Alabama, as their offense has been just pretty much lackluster, and hopefully this kind of propels Alabama to being a contender again. They're obviously still in the college football playoff, as that is a great segue into the second rankings that have come out, and we look at the projected, the bracket based off the rankings right now. And right now, you would have in the first round, you would have Boise State, who is the last team in. Boise State versus Ohio State. The first buys would be, here we go, number 1 Oregon, number 2 Texas, number 3 BYU, and number 4 Miami. So Oregon to win the Big Ten, Texas to win the SEC, BYU to win the Big 12, and Miami to win the ACC, top, the Power 4 conferences, as there's no more, Pac-12, so there's no Power 5 conferences anymore. And then obviously you'll have, your at-large bids, your 7 at-large bids, 8 at-large bids, pretty much going into. And then, that 12 seed where Boise State is at is pretty much, anybody that's outside of the Power 4 can get in. That's why, like, early on when NIU beat Notre Dame, they were they were originally, like, them and Boise State were 1 and 2 as being the best non-Power 5 school, because that they saved 1 slot for those schools, unless, like, you're so good that like say like NIU was like in the top 10 at this point, and Boise State was still Boise State, so it was still killing it, and say NIU was top 5 or something like that. Well, NIU would get in, and Boise State would probably get in, right? Because they'll probably get in over these other schools that are in there, right? Look at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's not part of a Power 5 conference either, or Power 4 conference either, and they're getting in, right? So, but they're a different entity, right? So you got to look at it like this. Look, like, Boise State is the best non-Power 4 conference team outside of, like, Notre Dame. We really don't consider Notre Dame, like, they're independent. So Notre Dame has always been a national power. So it's a little different for them, right? But then you got Notre Dame, number 9, Notre Dame seated number 9 in the bracket, will play Tennessee, and they'd have whoever wins that game, which that game would be played in Tennessee, in Knoxville. They would have the right, and they'd go and play Oregon. And then you got number 11, Ole Miss, coming off their win against Georgia. They would actually have to go into Happy Valley and play Penn State en route to play BYU and I don't even know what bowl game it would be. And then you have Alabama, who would actually go into Indiana and face. That would be that. Now that's crazy. Let's talk about Indiana. Indiana's a top 5 college football playoff team. That is insane right now to me. But yeah, Indiana is a top 5 college football playoff team, and they're actually number 7. Rourke has that team. I mean, the quarterback Rourke is he's been flat out amazing. But that Indiana team is something else. I mean, They haven't really played anybody, in my opinion. They played Michigan. They beat Michigan. Michigan kind of made it a game. They haven't really played anybody. They play somebody in a couple weeks. And when I talk about they play somebody, they go into the shoe and they got to play the Ohio State University. And that's going to be their first true test because outside of that, UCLA, they beat FIU, Western Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, and Michigan. None of those teams are remotely good besides Nebraska. None of those teams are remotely good besides Nebraska. So, Indiana's kind of scathed by and it's actually, got some national conversation, especially with like Paul Feinbaum, right? Guys like Paul Feinbaum are like, shame on the committee for putting Indiana in the top 5. Why is Indiana in the top 5? They haven't played anybody. Like, he's right. They haven't played anybody. And in a couple weeks, if they go into the shoe and pull off an upset against Ohio State, then we'll know that they're for real. But we'll see. It's TBD. But those two teams will have the right to play Texas, Alabama, and Indiana. And then the first team out, as I explained earlier, was Georgia. And then the second team out was SMU out of the ACC. And then the rest of the college football playoff, college football rankings go as this: Texas A&M at 15, Kansas State at 16, Colorado right behind Kansas State in the Big 12 right now. And like I said, Kansas State is third in the Big 12 right now. Colorado is second in the Big 12 right now, which I don't know how. But Colorado is, if the season ended today, they would be playing in the Big 12 championship game. It's the top two teams in the Big 12. And then you got number 18, Washington State moving up 3 slots, Louisville at 19, Clemson at 20. And then at number 21, we got South Carolina, who wasn't ranked before, but has had a great 2 weeks. They play another great game against Missouri, number 23 Missouri this weekend. So you guys don't want to miss that game. And then at number 22, we got LSU, Missouri, Army at 24, still undefeated. And then Tulane at 25. And Iowa State, I believe they dropped out because they lost. I forgot who they lost to. Golly, I should know this already. But yeah, Iowa State lost last week, so they dropped out of the rankings totally. So that's they lost to Kansas. Sorry, they that game wasn't even close. It really says 45-36, but that game wasn't even close. And then it was the week before they lost as well. So they dropped 2 in a row because they lost to Texas Tech 23-22 the week before. So bad, 2 weeks for Iowa State, who they were right there in the college football playoff, and leaders of the Big 12 were right there with BYU at least. And they virtually got eliminated in 2 weeks. So tough going for the Iowa State Cyclones. But that is the college football playoff, and it's going to be this week is, not a lot of great games this week in terms of like the movement of this right here. But next week you'll see in the next, week and 2 or 3 weeks, and then especially during the conference championship game weeks, Big Ten doesn't play a conference championship. The SEC does, Big 12 does. SEC does, Big 12 does, and the ACC still does. So, anyways, moving on to the games to watch. And I was hoping that Matt James would be on this show because he is our token Arizona State Sun Devil fan here. But this is going to be a good game. And I think this is, and I don't know why I did not put Kansas State's ranking there. For some reason, I missed that. For some reason, I missed that ranking. But anyways, Arizona State going into Manhattan, Kansas to face the number 16 Kansas State Wildcats. And this game should be a good game. I mean, I think that, you got 2 great running backs in DJ Giddens and Cam Scatterbu. You have a really 2 good young quarterbacks, in my opinion. And Sam Levitt, freshman out of West Lynn, Oregon, he's played phenomenal. Over 1,600 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. AJ Johnson, a sophomore, sat behind Will Howard last year, over 1,800 yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He's actually progressed tremendously as a passer. We all knew that what he can do with his feet. But yeah, Avery Johnson, Sam Levitt. Then you got Scam Scatterboo versus DJ Giddens. DJ Giddens is a big, physical, fast runner. I mean, that guy 6'1", 212. I mean, he seems a lot bigger than that on the football field. But he's just got breakaway speed, and he's a guy that can do it all. Cam Scatterboo is a bowling ball of a running back, 5'11", 215, over 1,000 yards this season, 11 touchdowns. And honestly, this wasn't my upset of the week, but I actually am going to go with Arizona State to win this game. Both teams are still looking to, getting that Big 12 championship picture. Arizona State still has a chance. Both teams are 4-2 in the conference. But it's going to be interesting to see how Sam Levitt, the freshman, plays against that defense, who can be stout at times. Especially in Manhattan, right? The front seven could be stout at times. So give me Arizona State, though, to go in Kansas State and pull off the win. I like Cam Scatterboo versus this defense, though. I think, they did a really good job a few weeks back, probably about 3 or 4 weeks back, going up against Ali Gordon in Oklahoma State. They just blew them out the water. They took Ali Gordon out from like the second quarter on. That defense did. So interesting to see what they do with Cam Scatterboo. This is a night game, but I mean, they utilize him so much in the offense that it's very hard to take him out of the offense. So very interesting to see. But I actually got Arizona State, and shout out to Matt James, because he'll be proud of me picking his Arizona State Sun Devils here. The spread is 7.5 for Kansas, for K-State. I would actually go with the points for Arizona State in this game. This one's going to be a dandy. I like this game. In a week where there's not a lot of high-profile games, this one could stand out for me as well. And then the next game we got on the slate, we got Utah going into number 17, Colorado. And this is a bit of a down year for Kyle Whittingham's team, for the University of Utah. Obviously they have some bright spots. Obviously, Cam Rising has been, hurt the last couple years, knee injuries and a whole myriad of other injuries. They've actually dropped, Utah's dropped, 5 straight since going 4-0 in the season. And they've dropped 5 straight. And this team just hasn't really, clicked. And it's just a down year, and the Cam Rising era is pretty much over with there in Utah. And so, Michael Bernard's a nice physical runner, but they're going against a hell of a defense in the University of Colorado. Shedeur Sanders, I mentioned all those wide receivers, LaJohntay Wester. Hold on, let me not disrespect Travis Hunter, LaJohntay Wester, Will Shepard, and Jimmy Horn Jr. All 4 guys are excellent wide receivers. Shedeur Sanders has just a myriad of weapons to throw to. And then the defense has played very well as well in the last few games as well. So, they're actually hitting their stride. I like Colorado in this game. The line is 11.5 right now for Colorado. The line is 13.5 for Colorado. I'm actually not going to take the points for Colorado. I'd rather go money line on that game. They're minus 600 on the money line right now, according to ESPN Bet. But, if I was a betting man, I would take the points with Utah. Not money line. I said take the points with Utah because I don't think that they'll lose by 2 touchdowns. I think this game would be a little bit closer than what folks would want in Boulder, especially Dion would want. So, but I still got Colorado sneaking past 6-point win for the University of Colorado. And then we have a ranked matchup between number 23 Missouri going into the hot number 21 South Carolina Gamecocks, and the Cox have been playing great football of late. this team has really risen from, they had a tough, game. They've played teams tough all season. And, they came out a couple weeks ago and they just absolutely obliterated Texas A&M at home, 44-20, after going into Oklahoma and beating them 35-9. But remember, they lost a close one to Alabama the week before, 27-25. They lost a close one earlier to LSU, 36-33, that I think they should have probably won. Interception, touchdown, got returned, got called back for, bonehead play, hitting the kicker, whatever the case is. Ole Miss did blow them out, but, South Carolina's playing great football. Lenora Sellers looks healthy. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. 238 yards, 2 touchdowns last week. Rocket Sanders, the Rocket Sanders playing great. Lenora Sellers is one of the better freshman quarterbacks in the nation, may I say. He's a redshirt freshman, but freshman nonetheless. And so he's been playing excellent football this year. He's a dual threat guy, 391 yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns as well. But this is a team that, hey, man, Shane Beamer has his team playing well. Raheem Sanders is an excellent running back. He's a big guy. We call him the Rocket. He's the Rocket. Raheem Rocket Sanders, 6 foot, 230 yards, 10 touchdowns on the season, 696 yards. And there's been somewhat of a disconnect with Missouri. Luther Burden, one of the best wide receivers in the nation. Brady Cook, one of the better quarterbacks, in the nation. They're a 2-loss team, but it's just something about Missouri. They started off the season hot. And, they lost that game to Texas A&M. They won 2 in a row. Then they got destroyed by Bama. And it just seems like, Missouri is just, they're right there. But like when it comes to like the upper echelon teams of the SEC, they just cannot get past, and they cannot beat. They can beat everybody else, but when it comes to the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Texas A&Ms, the LSUs, Missouri just has a tough time still beating those teams in the SEC. And last week, the last game they played against Oklahoma, they won 30-23 at home. But it was still, a closer game than what they thought. Drew Pine was the one that got the start in that game, as Brady Cook was on the shelf for that game. But this is a Missouri team. He's been on the shelf for a couple weeks already so far this year. So this is a team that obviously they're not going to make the college football playoff, but like I said, the up and coming team in the SEC. I remember for a few years when they got into the SEC, they really struggled to kind of, get acclimated to the speed of the SEC. I think they're up there. They're right there right now. But I think, this is a game right here against South Carolina, a hot South Carolina team that, you need to come down and face them. You need to come down and face your fears, and be an excellent, be the SEC team that you thought you can be. I like South Carolina. I think the spread right now for South Carolina, especially at home right now, is 13.5. I'll actually take the points for South Carolina. I don't think this game is going to be close. I think South Carolina is going to, pretty much lay the wood on them. They're too hot right now. Defense is playing great. One of the best 3-loss teams. I mean, they're not going to make the college football playoff, but they're a team that, can make some noise, just to kind of end the season. It's great for Lenora Sellers and some of the other young guys on the team to kind of end the season on a nice winning streak and nice hot streak there for South Carolina. And then the next game we got on the slate, we got number 1 Oregon going into Camp Randall and facing the number one Oregon Ducks. I'm so sorry, we just lost connection there. As number 7, as number one Oregon versus Wisconsin. I think I like this game on the slate. I think number one Oregon. Dylan Gabriel's definitely a Heisman Trophy candidate here, and he's a guy that everybody's got to watch out for. This Oregon team is a fantastic team, and going into Camp Randall is no tough feat for any team to for that matter. Jordan James is the excellent player, but I actually like Oregon to lose this game. This is my upset of the week here. I think Wisconsin's gonna pull off an upset here. They're a 13.5-point underdog. I think that Wisconsin's gonna, they're coming off 2, losses, one to Penn State, one to Iowa, but I think they get back off the schneid. And I think that they can beat the number one Oregon Ducks in Camp Randall this week. This is going to be a hell of a game. I think if Wisconsin can control the clock, run the football well, and play great defense, they have a big shot at winning this football game. So give me the Wisconsin Ducks as my upset of the week. And then last game on the slate, we got the game of the week and number 7 Tennessee versus number 12 Georgia. And I already know what this would be for Christian. This would be a shameless plug. So you guys want to catch that article an hour before it comes out. I believe kickoff time for this game is 6:30 p.m. So he will drop that around 5:30, 5 o'clock. So you guys don't want to miss that article that Christian drops. But yeah, this is a big game. This is an elimination game for Georgia, like I said earlier. And this also is probably an elimination game for Tennessee too, because they lose to Tennessee. I mean, they lose to Georgia. Georgia is the best 2-loss team. Alabama right now is the best 2-loss team, and Georgia is the second best 2-loss team in the nation. And I think Tennessee is third. If they lose to Georgia, they're eliminated from college football playoff contention. Georgia would slide in their slot, and they would be the first or second team out on the outside looking in the college football playoffs. It's a big, monumental game for Tennessee. Look, Nico Yamaleva has played fantastic. Redshirt freshman quarterback. Dylan Sampson has over 1,100 yards, 20 rushing touchdowns. He's been the best, probably the best running back in the SEC so far this season. I love this game right here for the University of Tennessee, but they are going into Athens, and Athens is a tough place to play. Kirby Smart's going to have his guys ready and locked and loaded to play in this football game. And I think that, this is a team that, could, make some, could push Georgia to the brink. But at the end of the day, I think I am concerned about Georgia's offense. Let me get that off the right. And they have some regressions defensively into some of that talent. But going into Georgia is a tough place to play for anybody, let alone a redshirt freshman quarterback starting. This is his first time going up against a Georgia team. Dylan Sampson, he's going to have to make his headway by, running the football strong between the tackles. They're going to utilize a lot of him. So look for him to be a, key aspect to, if Tennessee wins, they're going to have to go in there, have a great game plan at controlling the clock, running the football between the tackles, kind of being physical, smacking Georgia. Teams that hit Georgia first really have a great win rate. They like when a team hits Georgia first in the mouth, they have a great opportunity at probably beating Georgia. And that's what I noticed with them. If you sit back and you let Georgia bully you, you're not going to have a chance. So you have to come out there and you have to hit them dead right in the mouth first, smack them, score on your first 2, 3, 4 possessions, and really take Georgia and that crowd out of the game. Because once that crowd gets into the game, it's going to be a hard time sledding for that rookie quarterback. Or that freshman quarterback. So Tennessee, I like Tennessee as a unit, but I think Georgia wins this game. And it's just not their year this year to make the college football playoff. You got 2 more years or 1 more year with Nico Yamaleva. I think you'll get in maybe next year, but this year Georgia will sneak into the college football playoff, in my opinion. As much as I hate to say Georgia and Alabama will be in a college football playoff, we still got an SEC title game to get played. But nonetheless, I like Georgia to win this football game, and make sure you catch Christian's article at 5:30, an hour prior before the kickoff, as he brings that great content there on the dailyblitz.blog. And here are our Week 12 Heisman rankings. At number 1, I still got Aston Genty at number 1. I mean, you're getting your team into the college football playoff. You're the number 1 running back in the nation. You're on pace to break some records. And then number 2, I got Travis Hunter. A lot of people might disagree with me. They'd have Travis Hunter at 1. It's very close. Some people say Aston Genty at number 1. Some people say Travis Hunter at number 1. It's very close. And then number 3, I got Dylan Gabriel, who broke the record, national record for touchdown passes last week. So shout out to Dylan Gabriel for winning, for breaking that record. He's number 3 on my Heisman list. Cam Ward drops down, even though he leads the nation in touchdown passes. Cam Ward drops down all the way from what I had him at number 1 for some reason. To drop him all the way down to number 4. Curtis Work of Indiana, who's had a fantastic year, is at number 5. And then my dark horse for the Heisman is Jackson Dart of Ole Miss. All guys are very much deserved to make it down to New York. I think only 4 will make it down to New York. I think the top 4 will make it down to New York. I think Shador Sanders needs to get some love in there too. So I got to give him his flowers. I think he should be a Heisman Trophy candidate. The only reason I don't have him there because I'm being realistic, as odds really aren't in his favor. But I think he's played every bit as good as Cam Ward and Dylan Gabriel, probably even better. And I think if he gets his team into the college football playoff, he should be recognized as well as maybe going down to New York, but who knows. But anyways, that's been a wrap for the show. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast here at Prime Sports World. And in case you missed us, you can catch on all streaming platforms where podcasts can be heard. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Apple Music, Samsung, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon. And also make sure to catch us on the Huddle Sports Network. You guys don't want to miss that hot content as we bring the heat every week and every Friday at College Football Showdown here at Prime Sports World. And ladies and gentlemen, in case I missed you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Sayonara, suckers.